Welcome back to another episode of 50/50. I'm Christopher.
And I'm Charles.
Together, we were walking up and down the 50 top and 50 bottom movies of all time, according to the Internet Movie Database, as of January 1st, 2010.
Yeah.
That is vitally important to note every time,
Yes,
but that's
it
what we're
is.
doing. So, yes. Yes, absolutely. So, Charles, what are our
Man, you're
movies for this week?
breaking
man?
up kind of bad there. Also, what do we got? We got American History X from
Oh, no,
'98, and The Blade Master from 1982. And The Blade Master, it has multiple names. I think it's like Attor the Invincible was the original name. And then later on, it was re-edited in the 90s and became Cave Dwellers. So don't let it confuse you if you see, because the artwork, if you look at the movie artwork, it does not match the movie. So who knows? And apparently there's 4 different movies in this series. So anyway, there you go.
They made 4.
I believe
Wait,
so.
they
Yeah.
made 4? Okay, we'll come back to that one when we talk about the movie. I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun. Okay, I didn't go of Blade Master, so you'll have to forgive me on that. But yeah. Okay, so it's my internet. That's what's the issue. There we go.
Is it your internet that's doing it? I wasn't sure.
So the first movie, though, yeah, it's a little glitchy. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
The world's kind of going crazy today, so it's anyway. But so let's dive right in.
Yes,
if you can hear me, I don't know how bad it is. Wonderful.
I can hear you,
let's do it. Okay, awesome. So our first movie, the good movie, the one that's from the good list.
Yes.
Everybody can make their own decisions, I suppose. Is American History X, as you mentioned a moment ago, and I'll go ahead and we can read the synopsis real quick, or we can dive straight into the trailer. What do you think?
I'll do the synopsis first, then I'll play the trailer.
Sweet. So American History X follows a former neo-Nazi skinhead as he tries to prevent his younger brother from going down the same wrong path that he did.
All right, and here's the trailer.
Look, I told you, I don't want you all coming up here to see me.
I don't care what you told me, okay?
I'm trying to get through this, and you're just making it harder.
You think you're the only one doing time, Derek? You think I'm not in here with you?
He was his mother's hope.
He's gone. You don't know the world your children are living in.
His father's legacy.
It's everywhere I look now.
What?
This affirmative black shit.
The white man marches on!
See this? That means not welcome.
And his brother's hero.
I trust you, Derek.
Drop your weapon! God, no! Oh, there is
All that anger, all that hate.
Has anything you've done made your life better?
Derek Vineyard was released from Chino early this morning.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Too big to give me a hug?
Oh, it's good to see you. Check this out, man.
When'd you get that?
What?
Well, I came to talk about Danny. He's headed right where you are.
What's wrong with you?
Let the kid alone. He thinks the joint messed with your mind.
Did.
I'm asking you to do whatever's in your power.
You know what you can do? You can get me shot by a bunch of white boys. I am out, and Danny is out too. And if you come near my family again, I will feed you your heart.
What's happening, Dad?
I don't think you realize what's been going on here. We are 10 times what we were.
They're after you, man.
They're gonna come for me. There ain't nothing I can do. Hey, Danny!
Shoot it!
I love you, and you're my best friend. And I'm not telling you what to do, but I need you to understand.
So that is American History X. So real quick, before we dive into the actual critique of the movie, do you want to talk about kind of where it lands currently on the list at the moment?
Yes,
Or do
because
you want to do that?
it was number
Yeah.
38 on our original list. What is it now?
Correct. I want to know what you think. You think it went up or down?
It seems like all these movies we're talking about keep going down, so I'm going to say it went down. It went worse on the list.
So you're not wrong. It went from 38 to 39.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
It's basically unchanged.
Okay.
Which is kind of crazy that it's actually unchanged. I mean, just about everything else is like...
Wasn't it like, didn't Forrest Gump, how far? Forrest Gump jumped pretty good, didn't it?
I don't even remember, but yeah, Forrest Gump did move up a good bit. But yeah, it's just funny how some movies jump all over the place, and this one is almost completely stable for a decade, which is just crazy.
A decade?
Which means it's either not getting any votes or it's just incredibly...
I'm still not used to it being a decade since we started this. It's just like, what? No, that can't be right.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm comfortable with it having been a decade. Okay, so either way.
Yes.
So let's, I also want to go ahead and before we dive too deep in, I want to timestamp this particular podcast. I think it's important to do that given where we are and what's going on in the world, right? Like literally as we're recording this right now.
Yes.
It is September 23rd, 2020. And I'm not trying to get political, just current events of the day. The grand jury in Louisville, Kentucky handed down indictments or lack thereof, or lackluster indictments, however you want to view it, in the Breonna Taylor killing. And there's riots and protests and all of the above and shooting from both sides, all happening literally as we were recording this. So the fact that we are talking about this movie on today of all days, which we had scheduled for a while, this wasn't like some plan or something like that.
Right.
It's just
scheduled for 10 years.
Yeah. Yes. It feels very poignant that we would be talking about this movie.
Yes.
That aside, I just feel like it would be inappropriate to not at least mention that is what's happening in the world while we're talking about this movie. We're really not that tone deaf. So real quick, knee-jerk reactions, the moviness of the movie, despite all the social connotations. What did you think of the moviness of this movie?
This is a lot like, not in content, but it's a lot like how I felt about Forrest Gump. Initially, I didn't want to rewatch it. I'm like, I've seen it a lot. It's like one of those things. And then I watched it, and it captivated me again. I think it's a great movie. There are some small issues I have with it, but overall, I think it's a really great movie, and it's really engaging, and Edward Norton is amazing in this movie. So, I love it. I love the cinematography. I love his performance. It's just, like I said, it just really gets you from the very first scene on. It just feels like you really get into it.
Yeah, I felt like this movie, and I agree with you completely. Like everything you just said, I think this movie is just, I think maybe part of the reason it hasn't moved much on the standings is because it is just a powerful film, and It really does hold up well. And you're right, it's just like a gut punch from the first scene.
It's a hard movie to watch. Yeah.
Oh, it is not. This is not a fun movie. This is a particularly unpleasant movie. And honestly, you know what I kept thinking about, and the similarities are thin, and I don't know, just for some reason it felt like an echo of Clockwork Orange. Not in like the subject and not in like the arc of the character, just in the kind of like, we're just going to embroil you in the world of this really despicable character.
Yes.
And it just kind of like let you simmer in it, and there was no escaping it. I mean, it was, I think a lot of that though is something that I don't know if you could make this movie again today. I really don't. I think it would not to the extreme that it is, if that makes any sense. Like I think you could tell this story, but not with that level of just viciousness that this movie was made with. It's just brutal. But at the same time, it's kind of not pretty in that it's like flowers and sunshine, but the cinematography is outrageous. Like it reminds me a lot of that kind of mid to late 90s indie film. And I know that's what it was, but I'm just saying like that kind of mid to late 90s, like whether it's your Aronofskys or your Tarantinos, it just kind of looks like that. I think that was like the end of independent film being made on film. And it really and it shows where they're like, the black and white. There were parts of me that I just wish the whole movie was made in black and white. It's just beautiful.
Yeah,
It
the
really
black and
is.
white's the yeah. But having said that, I do like that style because it really does provide a nice contrast between the present and yeah, it's perfect. I love that.
For sure. Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not saying that you're right. It was done for purpose. It
No,
wasn't
I
done
get what
just
you're
to be
saying. I get what
silly.
you're saying. It's so beautiful. You rest the rest of the whole movie. You wish you could see it.
Correct.
Yeah, I get you.
But and Edward Norton is just top of his game. I mean, it's hard for me to envision him as anything other than this and his character from Fight Club. Like they are. I mean, there is just I can't hardly see him in anything else
and I
after
think
this movie.
so. This is '98, and I think I was thinking back on I believe he was nominated for Best Actor.
He was.
And I think it's the year that Roberto Benigni won for Life is Beautiful and it was an upset over Tom Hanks, if you remember that, for Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, was that the same year? I guess
those were all 98.
Yeah, wow, that's crazy.
But I was just thinking, like, Edward Norton to me was the front runner. I love Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan, but this performance is just it's out of this world.
Oh yes,
because it's like two different characters. It's
well, yeah, and it's just also like
and the physicality of it too.
This doesn't even like. I mean, the other guys are fantastic, and
right. I'm not knocking that either. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
it seems like when they talk about it, they always talk about the upset. I was like, Tom Hanks should have won, and it's like, well,
right.
Yeah, but this movie.
Oh, this is far better than. I mean, I feel like his performance here is far better than either of the other two.
Right, I'm looking at it now.
I did not. Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I don't know, and maybe you can back me up on some of this. My understanding, though, is that Edward Norton was a little bit of a prima donna.
Yes,
during
actually,
the post-production, especially.
Yeah, that was.
Unless I'm totally mistaken.
No, and so I've read a lot of different things on it. I know that the director Tony Kaye, I know that he wanted to take his name off the movie.
Right.
And they wouldn't let him do it. He wanted it to be an Alan Smithy movie, or I think he had another goofy name he wanted it to be. But what I've read is that for whatever reason, they had some really good test screenings of it, and people liked that movie. And then they the studio allowed Edward Norton to be with the editor and help kind of re-edit the movie without the director being there. And I've heard different claims. Like some people claim that the editor wanted him there because he was, it was his performance and he wanted to kind of guide it that way. Other people said the studio was going behind the director's back. And that's what caused it. So basically it was re-edited. And the director said that if it had been his original version, Edward Norton would have won the Oscar. It's like he still thinks his version was better. There was a work print version released. I haven't seen it, but apparently that version is like some version in between that's not even either version. So
weird, because
there were different screenings, so it went through a lot in post processing or just editing and changing it up. But the version we saw is apparently the version that Edward Norton and the editor put together.
I know that I saw this version, which is the one that we're referring to right now. I know for a fact when I was in, I guess, high school or whenever it was that it came, I saw some unrated.
That's probably the work print.
Yeah, and it was. I distinctly remember the shower sequence being substantially more brutal in that work cut.
Well, and apparently the movie was in a different order because the scene with the father at the table, which comes at the very end of this movie, was apparently at the beginning of that version, and so I actually prefer it at the end because it gives this kind of back history context. And it somehow grounds the film more because, when you're watching it, it's like you could sit back and say, "Oh, those are extreme. They're racist. They're white power, neo-Nazis, whatever it is." But when you see the dad at the table, that's a little bit more subdued, more subtle, and that shows how racism can be more insidious as well. And so I think that grounds the film, and it kind of allows the rest to just you can really believe that catapult that he
well, it also I think removes, because there's almost a feeling that it was this perfect until you see that scene. There's a feeling that it's almost like this perfect household until the father is killed, and that's when everything goes off the rails. And that scene basically flips all that on its ear, so that by the end you're like, oh no, this had been like kind of festering for a while.
Right.
Like it just totally changes that whole scene. And while we're talking about sequencing and editing and everything, again, this just falls squarely in line with the Tarantino ethic of, you know, beginning, middle, and end, not necessarily in that order kind of situation, right? But I feel like there are times when it's not just that you're telling the story out of sequence, it's literally the scenes that you are choosing to butt up against each other. So doing the whole like supermarket ransacking and all that stuff, followed up immediately with a dining room discussion about the 92 riots in Los Angeles, is just fantastic juxtaposition. Like putting those two right next to each other removes the validity of either argument. Like it makes them both sound like they don't know what they're talking about. And I'm not saying that I'm not trying to justify an action or an opinion or anything like that, but it's just like, suddenly if you're going to defend one group doing something, you have to then defend the other group doing it. And if you're going to do it, then how can you get onto them for doing it? And like the conflict that it puts there was just so, I just, that choice. And that might be more the screenwriting than the directing. I'm not sure.
Well, and I was going to say, I wonder if that was in the original version. You know, it's like, I wonder at which point, because again, it all comes together. It's like everything was right.
Well, and I will push back on that though, because I feel like this movie, I feel like it had all the right pieces. I feel like sometimes in a more, I don't know that I even have the right to say this, but I feel like in a more competent hands, whether it be the hands of an editor or a director, some of it could have been played better.
Well, and so maybe the director's right in that sense. You know, maybe the director really thinks because he's to this day, I believe he still thinks he would have won Edward Norton the Oscar for it.
Yeah, I just know there were some scenes where I was like, man, this is gorgeous stuff, but the editing is just jigsawed. Like, I don't understand. Like, nothing. The pacing is all weird.
And I did say, to me, it's not perfect. There are some things that bother me, and I don't, maybe not necessarily the way you're talking about, but it does bother me that Edward Furlong, the brother, basically in the span of a day, he goes from white supremacist wannabe to tearing down all the stuff out of his room to being, you know, it's like, and I know they said he was a confused kid, but I feel like that time was so compressed.
Sure.
It's like he literally, Edward Norton gets out of jail, and in the same day, all this happens. Changes his brother's life, boom, 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 and then the ending the way it is. And I've always felt like the ending is a little too melodramatic. Like it seemed, I wish there'd been a better resolution to it. I understand it makes it tragedy and all that. But
I was even going to say
it does kind of bother me with it.
It feels like a stage play. The concept that so much could change in one day, the melodramatic ending. Like I would be interested to know if the writer had a background in theater, right? Because it feels like I could see this being, I mean, not that people would want to go see it, but you could see a movie like this or a script like that being a stage play. And you know, again, if you're an actor or a fan of that kind of work, the whole it happening in one day, that's just normal. Like, I mean, like how many stage plays just go that way, right? Where it just, everything's been, you know, Glenn Ross kind of situation, right? Where it's just, it all comes to a head in one day kind of thing. But yeah, I see what you mean though. You're right. I think some of the structure is a little strange as far as that goes, and how quickly the characters go on their journey is definitely there. But I think also though, so much of that is overshadowed not just by the performances and the cinematography, but man, the set pieces of this movie are such just phenomenal set pieces, you know. And I mean, you can say like three things off the top of your head and everybody knows exactly what you're talking about, right? You have a shower scene, you have a curb stomp, you have, I mean, like you can just say these few little words and it's just burned. I mean, it's just, you have like created a moment where something is like, you've made something there.
That
And I
curb
think
stomp scene is so hard to watch.
Oh.
I think part of it is the sound design, because the teeth scraping over it, just every little thing coming together. It's like, because then it's one of those things. That's why I love movies, because I'm watching that. I know it's fake. I know they didn't stomp a head, but somehow every time I believe it. Like it's just that came together. It's
Yeah, and that the part that gets me every single time is not the actual stomp. The stomp's terrible, don't get me wrong, but it's the shot right before that where it's a profile of the guy putting his teeth on the curb, and you see the teeth.
The teeth and the
sound.
And
just like that.
You hear it. You hear it.
The scraping. It's bad.
That's what bugs me the most.
Really...
Yeah, and it's yeah. But even that, if even that sequence takes place immediately after that dinner sequence. So even that's put together really quickly. So it's like there's that all in kind of one day. There's, because that's probably it's the basketball scene, then the dinner scene, then that all ties together. Then you have your prison sequence, and then you have all the stuff with his brother. So it's really the prison sequence is the longest, because that happens over however many years or whatever months it was. Right. Yeah, I was also going to say one of the things that I never really picked up before, I didn't remember picking up, is like when it's Elliot Gould, right? It's his character in the principal's office in the very beginning, one of the first scenes, and they're talking, and they, when you watch it all the way through, you kind of realize like they each had a reason why they thought they were right. Like Elliot Gould knew Edward Norton's the character was this crazy white supremacist. That's all he knew of him because of that dinner sequence. And the principal knew him to be a better man because he'd already been at the prison with him. He'd already seen him changing. He'd already seen after the prison shower rape. He'd already seen all that stuff. So the two of them each know about that character in their own way, and they're both equally right. Like, and I just you don't really think about that till after, but it's kind of an amazing thing. Because I was watching, I was like, man, they each have a very valid reason why they don't think the brother is a good person, and Edward Norton, I mean, or why they think he's either good or bad, and why they don't, Elliot Gould doesn't think the younger brother is, he thinks he's beyond reproach. He's gone.
Right.
And
well, and it's funny because they're not only do they both have a reason, but they're both right, because it's almost as though they know totally different people. Like,
correct.
He changes that much that they basically don't even know the same person.
Right.
And that's, and I think, yes, you're correct. And I think that stuff like that, where it is, can a person change? Can a person get better? Forget whether it can happen in a day or whatever, but like, can a person really overcome these things? Can we as people really overcome these things? And is it possible to listen to somebody else and see your hypocrisy and them see theirs, and everybody come to, like, is it possible for there to be reconciliation, and what does that look like? Because here's the thing, man. There is no world in which the next scene after this movie ends is a happy one, right?
No.
Like, I mean, something terrible is going to happen to pretty much everybody involved. And it's one of those things, and I'm not just saying that's because it's a tragedy. I'm saying it's because we know what the cycle of violence looks like in that kind of a circumstance. And it's just, I think the depth and the weight of the questions this movie poses is just, I think that's what gives it that staying power. It's not just that it's so well done, it's that it's asking really important questions that, I mean, obviously we are still grappling with at this very second, and
maybe even more so, or at least it's more out in the open. It seems like it's all kind of really erupted. So in that way, the way, I don't really think the movie feels dated. I mean, yes, it's a 90s film. It has that vibe, but there's nothing that really, I was kind of talking about this last time on the Good, the Bad, and the podcast. But we were talking about Jurassic Park and how Jurassic Park doesn't really feel dated to me. Neither does this movie. There's nothing where they clearly like focus on something that's specifically 90s. There's nothing that's like even the fashion sense, because you're dealing with neo-Nazis and that look. It doesn't strike me as being a movie that's over 20 years now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely, and I think it's not just. Yeah, it's all those things. I mean, it wasn't made as a period piece, but now it feels very much of its time. But the fact that we're still grappling with those issues makes it feel timeless.
Right.
And it, like, the fact that literally there's an entire scene talking about looting and destruction of property and what that does to it. I mean, like, come on, like, could it be any more tailor-made for 2020 right now? You know, and
Right.
it's like, on the one hand, kudos to the filmmakers for making a timeless film about an important subject, and then shame on us as humans that it is still relevant. You know what I mean? It's
and
just,
more so, yeah.
And more so, yeah, exactly. It's rough. But
and I know we're running out of time on this one. Did
yes,
you
we
want
are,
to?
for
Did
sure.
you want to talk about? You could have mentioned the production stuff, right? So
yes. So stepping back from the really dark, heavy stuff there for a second, when I was watching this film again, because I haven't watched it since forever, the scene he comes out in the prison and the whole gonna raise the flag, and he takes his shirt off to show off his tattoos and just kind of like see who his buddies were. At that exact moment, I realized, like, oh no, I've been there. I've actually filmed at that prison.
we got some
and when I was
here.
at film school, when I was at film school, we actually went to that prison. It's a decommissioned Los Angeles County prison, Lincoln Heights prison, and we filmed there. And it completely pulled me out of the movie for about 5 minutes. I was like, wait a minute, I've been there. That's a rooftop. It's not like some courtyard. It's actually like a roof that's like 10 stories off the ground or whatever. And so then I did some quick checking because I hadn't really given it a second thought since then. That prison has been used in so many things. It was used in LA Confidential. It was used, obviously, in American History X, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, that was the
it's
one.
in
Nightmare on
Iron
Elm
Man
Street.
2.
It was the boiler room in Nightmare on Elm Street. That's crazy.
The boiler room. Yeah, it's been in like music videos. Like, the site was used for Lady Gaga music videos. I mean, it's bizarre. But all that to be said, I've been there before. I've filmed on that rooftop, and it's just weird to have been there because I don't know. It's strange because it's a legit prison. I mean, barbed wire bars. It's a real prison. And so they weren't like, that wasn't a mock-up. It's crazy, but it's cool. It just kind of pulled me out of the movie as I was watching it because it suddenly felt very personal. So, anyway.
And I looked up the Oscars. It was him. So it was for the actors. It was let's see. It was Roberto Benigni who actually won. Ian McKellen, Nick Nolte, Edward Norton, and Tom Hanks. And
was Ian McKellen, what was that for?
Gods and Monsters.
Oh, okay, got it.
And and American History X wasn't even nominated for picture.
No, I knew that.
Which Shakespeare in Love won. So it's like, yeah. Anyway,
can you imagine if those two had been like head to head? That's just how do you?
Well, but it was the Saving Private Ryan was the one that was projected to win, and that's a whole thing. But
yeah, but that's it's a very, as much as the movie's a downer, that's a very feel good movie compared to American History X.
Yes, it is.
I know that sounds crazy to say out loud, but yeah. Yes. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give American History X?
I'd give it an 8.
I may go a touch higher and give it like an 8.5, but yeah, I would say it's definitely very high. I think the IMDb rating is probably pretty spot on. But
what's in number 38 spot currently? Were you able to look that up?
Yeah, the number 38 spot currently is Terminator 2.
Wow, was that on our list? We talked about that. So it moved. That moved up. Okay.
That moved up, yeah.
Yeah, I think was that when we talked about Puma Man? Or I don't know. I don't know which one was paired up with that.
Oh gosh. So American History X, I would give it an 8.5, and you'll give it an 8. I think this movie totally holds up. If you have the stomach to watch it, it's well worth watching, especially given our current climate. It holds up. It's aged quite well.
Yeah.
So, yes.
All right, so you want to move on to the Blade Master?
Absolutely. Let's lighten the mood here a little bit. Let's talk about Blade Master.
All right, so let me look up the let me look up the synopsis here. So it's Musclebound Ator. I'm sorry, Musclebound Ator and his mute East Asian sidekick, who's named Thong, They didn't put that in there, but his name's Thong. They travel from the ends of the earth to save his aged mentor from the evil, mustachioed Zor. And here is the trailer, and I will warn you, the trailer is really, really short.
It was a time long ago. A force was discovered so great it could destroy the universe. Then the evil of the earth rose up with all their might to seize this force for their own. Nothing stood in their way except one man. The Blade Master.
All right, so that is The Blade Master. I'm not even going to attempt the original pronunciation because I'm not going to do it.
Well, it's Ator. That's about all
ridiculous. I know. Ator. I'm sorry, Ator. My fault. Ator, not Ator.
It's hard to say, right?
It is as ridiculous as it seems. It is truly an absurd movie. Okay, so what thoughts? Opinions?
I have a lot on this one. So let me ask you this: were you able to finish it? Because I know
I was.
Okay. So here's the thing. So I got a lot of things to say about this. For one, it's a series of these movies. This is the second one in the series, and I'd got this a long time ago when we were first going to do it, but I'd never watched it. It was a movie that it's VHS, and it was one that I wasn't thrilled about having to watch, to be honest. And so I've saved it in the VHS from the original one, and I was like, okay, well, you know, I saw that there were ways to watch it online, because like we said last time that this podcast is way easier now with the technology now than it was then. But anyway, so I saved this, and I didn't have a VCR anymore, so I borrowed a VCR, and I'm like all set to finally watch it. And what happens? It gets stuck in the VCR. Like after all these years, it's still stuck in the VCR. It's an empty box I just pulled. So basically, I ended up having to watch it online. And the version I watched somehow cut off the ending. It just stops. And I knew that was the same version that Topher watched. And it was like, okay, well, you know, did you watch it? Because it's like it cut off just a couple minutes before it ended. But that ending changes the game. It changes everything, right? It's ridiculous.
I honestly, like, when you said that, you were like, did you see the one with the ending? And I was like, no, but I mean, it's over, right? I mean, the movie is basically Ator, not Ator, it's Ator, has gotten there and is like defeated Zor. Like, the story is over. There is nothing left to show, and that's where it cut.
Well, Thong's actually the one that defeats Zor. Thong just sneaks up in the corner.
I see that, but that doesn't. But in the cutoff version, that's not there.
Right.
Like, it cuts before that happens. So anyway, but the villain is defeated. The movie is over. So like, okay, great. No big deal. It's over. And then you're like, no. The last 3 minutes are everything. And for those of you who have not seen the movie, spoiler alert, I'm going to just ruin it for you. The MacGuffin of this movie is apparently an espresso maker, an atomic bomb. And that's what it is. And
what was it called in the movie? It had a name.
I can't remember. It was absurd. It literally was a little chrome thing about this big, like octagonal thing about this big. And I have an espresso maker that looks just like it.
Well, and it's like super bright too. And but it was also like when they first show it, it's like glowing bright, and he's telling his daughter what it is, and he's like, it's everything and nothing. It's like, what does that mean? Like, what is it?
What's he talking about?
Yeah. I wish I knew what it's called.
And it's
it was
bomb.
Like, a geometric nucleus is what they called it.
The what? What did they call it?
The geometric nucleus. They only said that in the movie. They just said it a couple times. And you don't have a clue what they're talking about, but they call it that because it's a nuclear bomb. It's like... And this movie...
Information that could have been helpful.
This movie, when the heck does it take place? Like, okay, so that's the other thing too. Like, at first I was watching it and I'm just like, okay, it's a Conan the Barbarian knockoff, whatever.
Yes.
But, and it's not, I mean, it's cheesy, as you can tell it's low budget, but it's not terrible. But they start doing these goofy things. Like, for one, he tells his daughter, he's like, he tells her to go find Ator so Ator can help them. And he's like, sure, where will I find him? He's like, walk to the end of the earth and you will find him. And that's good enough for her. So she takes off going. And then it's like she gets shot by an arrow by the bad guys that are invading. And then all of a sudden she finds Ator with the arrow and she's still alive and he saves her. It's like, so the end of the earth was just a few steps outside of the castle, apparently. But then the whole movie, the rest of the movie, it's them getting back to the castle, and that takes an hour, which they get lost along the way in caves that have invisible ninjas and what? I don't know. I have no idea. Like
there's human sacrifices and giant snakes and just like what is going on?
The giant snake. It was really convincing. It was amazing. It was the
worst job.
It reminded me of Ed Wood, where it's like Martin Landau as Bela Lugosi's having to battle that octopus thing in the lake, and he's having to like flail it around to make it look like it's attacking him because they didn't have the motor.
Yes,
and it's like the same thing. Yes. He's got the snake and fight it.
I was so confused because they're like, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but that's part of the movie. It's like, okay, that's great. It's making it so much more entertaining. But I think, aside from the nuclear bomb at the end, I think my absolute favorite part that was just so random was when he goes and says he's going to cause a diversion, and then all of a sudden he's hang gliding and he's dropping bombs on the bad guy. And okay, as I said, when the heck does this movie take place? And two, because the bad guys don't even know what flying is. It's like that a man like can't be flying. Like it's like, where did he get the hang glider from? And they don't explain it. They don't show him making it. They literally cut from a scene, and he's just... Because as I said earlier, when they recut this movie and they called it Cave Dwellers, so the beginning of the movie, does it take place in like caveman times? What is Stone Age, Iron Age? When does this movie take place? Apparently, there's a bad guy. There's one of the bad guys apparently wears sunglasses as an extra in the background. I didn't see it, but apparently that's a thing in it.
The only way I could like justify in my brain was that like there's like this advanced culture with these like barbarian hordes around, like like Rome and the barbarians on the gates. There's not like that was the only way it worked in my brain. But even that doesn't make any sense. Why do they have a hang glider and bombs? Oh, and a nuclear bomb, not just like little like explosives, but a nuclear bomb. He's discovered it.
Right.
He
detonates it. He destroys it, which, I guess it doesn't kill him because he's back in the sequel. So somehow.
It is honestly, if you liked Conan the Barbarian, but it was just too high quality and too serious for you, yes. This is the movie for you. Like if Schwarzenegger his acting is too good, this is the movie for you. It really, oh man, it is rough. It is really rough. And I understand. Look, here's the thing. I know how you had that VHS and you're like, I really don't know that I want to watch this. I had a YouTube link and I was like, I really don't want to click that. Like there is zero effort involved and I don't even want to put forth that. And about 30 minutes into it, I was right. I was totally right. This movie is rough.
It's very rough.
But here's the thing. I feel like they made the movie they wanted to make. That's the part that's so like sometimes you see these movies, these bad movies, and you're like Creeping Terror, right? Like you can tell he didn't have what he needed, right? He didn't get the budget he wanted. He didn't have audio, whatever, right? Yeah, all that stuff. This one, you're just like, oh no, you guys, this is what you want. Like somebody saw it and went, yes.
Well, it's funny you're saying all that because you had pictures from your production earlier. I mean, they weren't part of American History X, but I actually had forgotten that I worked on this movie, and so I have these pictures here. So you can see there I am. That's the main bad guy. We haven't really talked about him. We haven't talked about and I was a boom operator for this shot. But we haven't talked about the bad guy too much because the bad guy is fantastic. There I am. That's another sequence. I was kind of a stand-in for him, trying to get the lighting right. But yeah, but that's so there's my stuff in there, my contribution to the film. And like I said, I forgot it, because it's been a while. But the bad guy reminded me so much of. Well, there's a couple of things. One, he reminded me of Robin Hood, the Kevin Costner version. Yeah, with Alan Rickman and his performance. He's great in that movie. That's a little bit. This guy reminded me of that crossed with the bass player from Spinal Tap. It was kind of he was very flamboyant. He's constantly touching Ator. He's like touching his chest and just constantly. And instead of like killing people, he like talks to them and taunts them that way. But I loved it. I loved all of it. I thought it was fantastic.
All it made me think of was Glenn Close in Hook. That's what this made me think of. I was like, this has got to be an actress. They just taped a mustache on, because you're right, the flamboyant side of it. I was like, I kept thinking about Glenn Close with a beard on, and it was just really distracting.
But he's fantastic. No, Glenn Close I liked him. He made it fun. In Hook. He made it a lot of fun, I thought.
He was ridiculous. I mean,
he was the best part of the movie for me in terms of all the actors, because Ator was really boring. He didn't say too much, very stiff, and it's like, he was my favorite part, aside from all the crazy stuff we already mentioned.
Yes,
and they had that recap the recap at the beginning, which I assume came from the first movie.
Yeah,
I assume they just they quickly recap everything and set up the backlore.
Yeah, with the whole
Ator.
Well, and that's the other thing with this movie. Anytime there's any sort of like an action or fight sequence, it goes on about 7 times longer than it needs to.
Well, that's because they do it in slow motion.
Well, they're going to fight for 20 minutes.
It wasn't shot in slow motion. The actors just did it in slow motion themselves for whatever reason. That was a bold choice. It is true though. Those action scenes are so bad and so boring. It's and actually I just remember the Cave Dwellers part, so when it was called Cave Dwellers when it was re-released, they took the beginning and end of a different movie. I don't know if it was a different Ator movie or whatever, and they cropped those into it, even though they had nothing to do with the rest of the movie. And you could tell because they covered up the original titles. They just put like a black bar and put new titles over it. It was like, what? So that complicates it even more, because you never see those characters again. And that's the version that Mystery Science Theater 3000 reviewed. So again, if you're looking for their version of it, it's under Cave Dwellers, not Ator, not Blade Master. The new Mystery Science Theater 3000, the Gauntlet, they did the original Ator, just to be confusing, I guess.
I feel like the way to make money is to make a really bad movie like this and make sure that you copyright it to death, so that when people start doing this crap, you're getting royalties. Because this movie's been recut and re-edited and redistributed so many times. It's ridiculous.
Oh, Mark commented on
here. So here's the other thing.
I was going to say, Mark, real quick, Mark commented on it that he worked on that movie too. He said that's how he and I met. And that's true. I'd actually forgot how Mark and I met. So we both did some kind of different variety of things, because it was a low production. So like I said, I was bouncing around from boom operator to stand-in to grip. It just whatever was on there, I was there. So nice people, nice production.
I do also, going back to the whole, they got exactly what they wanted. Those action scenes were not only way too long, but they were like, the amount of money they had whole sets, the little village built with then there's horses and there's fire. It was low budget, yes, but at the same time, it's not like they didn't have any. It wasn't like paper mache.
Right, so you've got to give it at least a 3 then on your list, right? You have to give it a 3. Well, okay, but speaking of paper mache though, what was up with the painted paper plate hubcap thing that the main lady wore? It looked like a dented plate or a hubcap.
She was wearing a hubcap. Yeah, she was wearing a hubcap. Yeah, I don't think there's any other explanation possible. It was just a hubcap that she was wearing. There is nothing redeeming about this movie except how bad it is. That is the only redeeming thing about this movie.
But they completed it. So I'll wait for you to honor your skill. They completed it.
I will stand by my word. I won't go back on it. I'll give it a 3 because they finished it and put out the movie they wanted. It's a bad movie, and I don't know if they pulled a Tommy Wiseau and tried to make a bad movie, but definitely made a bad movie.
Apparently, Ator, the first one, is much better. I don't know, but
it would have to. I mean, I guess it would.
Well, it spawned a franchise, so. But I would say I would probably give it a 4. Do you think it deserves to be on this list? 38th worst movie of all time.
I mean, it's bad, but I don't know if it's the 38th.
Right, I feel the same way. I don't think it should be in the top 50 or bottom 50.
This is like a crappy movie. This is the quality that you would see like Saturday afternoon TV, made for TV movie or something like that. I mean, it's bad when you are. It's bad when you're watching it next to American History X, right? Like, it's not. It hurts your brain to try and hold them at the same time, but like, it's not any worse than any other terrible Saturday afternoon made for TV movie.
Right, it's the kind of stuff you could picture. You said late afternoon. I was actually picturing it being more like the kind of stuff you used to see on like USA, like the USA channel. Late at night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or, some of those kind of B movies, or it's not even quite as good as like a Xena Warrior Princess or a Hercules show. It's not even that quality.
No, it's not. I was going to say if those movies were older, like this is such a ridiculous poll. So if you can't go along with it, I understand. I don't know if anybody can go along with us or not. There was an episode of MacGyver where he goes back to like medieval times. And that's how this movie felt. It felt like an episode of MacGyver where he goes back in time, except worse. Because
so what's currently 38 worst movie of all time?
Currently, the 38th worst movie of all time is Rollerball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that may complicate next time because what's. Ooh, we'll have to talk about that. So, and what is Ator? Is Ator on the list anymore?
Ator is no longer on the bottom 100 movies.
I see. So okay, that's good. I'll agree with that. I think that's probably maybe not bottom, maybe 100, but at least out of the 50. That's funny. All right.
It must have something to do with the IMDb scale must have something to do with number of votes received, not just overall score. Because if you were to just look at the overall score of Blade Master or Ator, whatever we're calling it, its overall score on IMDb right now is 2.3, which should put it no higher than number 8 on the list. The 8th worst movie of all time is rated 2.3.
But does it have a lot more votes or a lot less or something?
Yeah, it's got to have a lot more votes than Ator does, because Ator really doesn't have that many votes. Like, it's only like 3,000. So I guess House of the Dead, which is currently the same ranking, and it's got 35,000 votes. It must have something to do with not just the score, but the number of people that have voted. So
right,
based solely on the score, Ator is the 8th worst movie of all time currently, but not enough people think so for it to achieve that. So
okay, because
either way, it is no longer on the list at the moment.
Well, okay, so is there anything else you want to talk about it? Because I'm looking at our list trying to figure out what our next ones are going to be. Then, anything else you want to say about this movie?
I would say, don't watch this movie. That is all I'm going to say.
I would say if you're going to watch it for the end, or watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version. So, which is called Cave Dwellers. For sure. Because I say that repeatedly because that confused the heck out of me when I was trying to. Even when I bought this 10 years ago, I didn't know if I had the right version. So, yeah.
Well, you definitely got what you paid for.
Well, I still don't know if it's the right version because I couldn't even watch it. So, who knows? It was a nice one.
Okay.
When I pulled out the tape, it was like, be kind, rewind. And it was just a nice little flashback.
Oh, man. Okay, so our next 2 movies. The good movie next on our list is American Beauty, which should have a really interesting connotation now. That movie is
Indeed.
going to have a whole different feel now than it did then. And the worst movie, or the bad movie, is the Tony Blair Witch Project, which I don't even know if we're able to do that one, right?
We can't find it. Like, I remember I've tried looking for that for a long time, and I believe back when IMDb had a comment section on each movie, I was even on there trying to figure out if there's anyone that had it. There was a person that claimed he was the director, and I was even gonna, willing to figure out a way to buy it from him, and he would not sell it, which makes me think he probably was the director, because a real person would be like, yeah, I'll take your money, even if they were a scam. But this guy was like, no. He's like, I have it. I don't want it out. You can't find this movie anywhere. I found supposed trailers, but even those, they don't seem like an actual movie at all, and they don't seem like they match it. So what is what's the current 37th worst movie?
The current 37th worst movie is Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
which didn't even exist when we started this. So
yeah, because I was gonna say I thought last time we thought that Rollerball was at this list. I guess I thought maybe either Rollerball went down or something happened in the meantime.
Yeah, Rollerball might be on our list upcoming. That's very possible.
But Jack and Jill then. So we're going to, let's assume that we can't find the Tony Blair Witch Project, which is a good assumption. We'll be doing American Beauty and Jack and Jill.
It's quality. It's so good.
I'm kind of curious what you're going to say about American Beauty. I mean, yeah, that movie.
We'll talk about it later. Yes, we'll talk about plenty next time.
All right, and so we have a lot of stuff that's upcoming, by the way. So we got I think it's coming up October 7th. We'll be doing The Good, the Bad, and the Podcast. We'll be doing torture porn, which was my genre pick. Yeah, I don't know if you heard that podcast. I picked for the three movies. It was Hostel. It's Hostel, Ichi the Killer, and Blood-Sucking Freaks.
Oh no!
Have you seen any of those?
Oh no! I've seen parts of all three of them, and I'm not. Nope, I'm good. You guys have fun. Y'all enjoy that.
That's yeah. Whoa, Mark just said American Beauty is his all-time favorite movie. That's interesting.
Oh,
we might have to do a guest.
Choice.
We might need a guest reviewer, possibly. We'll see. But and he loves Adam Sandler. He says so. That's a good. All right. Yeah. But okay. So that's coming up on October 7th. That's a regular Good, Bad, and Podcast. October is also 31 Days of Horror. So we'll be doing some of those. We'll be doing those reviews starting October 1st. Then towards the end of October, maybe October 21st or October 23rd. I can't remember which day it is. Topher, Kelly, and I will be starting our discussion on Here and There about the Hannibal Lecter books and movies. So that'll be starting. That'll be fun. And then we're going to do a live podcast on Tuesday, November 3rd, which is Election Day. So we're going to be, on that day, we're going to be discussing movies that are based on fake U.S. elections, fictional U.S. elections. So that'll be fun. And we're also going to, at some point, do a political discussion. That's not necessarily it won't be about movies at all. Probably going to call that Political Bubble. And that's going to be coming up sometime soon. Just with a variety of people, just, because I feel like we're all inside our own bubble, politically wise. We shield ourselves, and, and Facebook, all these algorithms always show us stuff that we tend to agree with anyway. So I think it might be nice to hear different perspectives. And like I said, it won't be a debate. There's not going to be arguing. It's going to literally be people just saying their opinions on stuff on 5 different topics, which we haven't decided yet. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up. Yeah.
And we generally try and keep this particular cast politics free. Like, that's very,
right. Here and there, 50-50 and Good, Bad, the Podcast. We do. I very much that way.
Yeah.
That was always one of the things I want to keep it like politically neutral, and also family friendly in a lot of ways. Like even we give heads up if we're going to get a little more, but we really do try to keep it, for everybody, because it's for movie lovers. We want movie lovers to watch. So
that's right. And honestly, we don't want it to get in the way of enjoying a good movie, right? You don't have to agree with everything about a movie to enjoy it. That's right. Well, sure, absolutely. I have no idea what Ator's opinion is. But yeah, we'll just he's apparently a pro-nuclear war. But what I was going to say is
no, it's an anti-war film. That's what makes that movie so brilliant. At the end, that's why the ending is so important. Yes, okay. Mankind's not ready for that weapon yet. That's what they say. The narrator comes on.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, non-proliferation. Yeah, all that thing. The point being, though, the political bubble one, just be ready for those subjects to come out. If that's not what you're into and you're just here for the movies and the giggles, then stick around for that. But whatever. But I think you're right. I think the goal is very much to have a civil conversation where we just hear one another out. There's no trying to convince or win points or anything like that. It's just, I want to know what everybody's thinking from every perspective.
Right, and Topher and I are actually going to be the moderators on that. So, and what we're trying to do is I'm trying to get a wide variety of people, cast a wide net. I want conservatives, liberals, everything in between, libertarians, whatever it is. I want to know what people think. And I'm also trying to get a not just political level, but a diverse group of people as well. So I'm trying to shorten it down. I've got like about 10 people so far that say they're interested. I may break it up into 2 different groups on 2 different nights. We'll see. Because 10 people may be a lot to try and get into, discussion. So I want to make sure everyone's heard.
I think it's definitely also, I think even just that statement right there, I'm sorry, we're already going into it. I think that statement right there, though, shows that the spectrum of opinions is much broader than we are led to believe. And
right.
It could be helpful to hear all those out. So anyway, I also think
the election night, no matter who you're rooting for in this election, I think it's going to be historic. I think it's going to be crazy.
No doubt.
I don't think I don't think we'll know by the end of that night. And if we don't know by the end of the night, I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be one of those things at an uncertain time in America. I really believe that, no matter who wins. So anyway,
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I think that is all the more reason that we need to begin the process now of listening to one another and understanding one another and not trying to win points and just learning how to coexist. And we just need to get along.
We do. Yeah.
All of that aside, I think the podcast is going to be great. I think it's going to be a good time to hear and listen and be heard. And if that's your cup of tea, join us. It's going to be a good time. So,
all right. So you got the outro ready?
I do. Yep. So, always, you can watch us live on Facebook or listen to a replay on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and YouTube by searching 50/50 and IMDB. Find all of our podcasts at itsjustawesome.com. But whatever your preferred method, be sure to subscribe and like us wherever you happen to watch.
Yes.
Whew. Yes. That is a mouthful. There are just way too many platforms. That's ridiculous.
Well, anyway, some of it cut out because of your internet. So I don't even know if we heard half the platforms, but that's okay. It's good. I could see your mouth was moving.
There's a lot of platforms. We're on them. Look for us.
I actually, I don't know if this is true, but I got an email that Amazon is allowing podcasts. I don't know if it's spam or not, but I want to look into that. And by the way, I don't know if I told you this, Topher. I added The Good, the Bad, and the Podcast to IMDb because you can list podcasts there now.
Oh.
I'm thinking about adding ours at some point, but I haven't done it yet because I don't know the benefit. I don't know the benefit yet. So I'm like, because it's. Have you gone through the process of putting stuff on IMDb before? It's kind of
It's awful.
It's awful. It's the same way for a podcast, and so it took me forever to get one up there. And after I did it, I'm like, well, what good does this do me? Like, is someone going to find it on there and then say, yes, I want to watch that podcast, and then go find? It's like, I don't know, but maybe. Yeah, maybe someone will search my name on there or your name on there, and they'll say like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, it's a pain getting anything up there on IMDb.
Yeah, it's a terrible process.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if I'm
Yes.
credited for my work on Ator, so whatever. I'm credited for other things.
I'm fairly confident you have no credit in Ator. I'm just throwing that out there.
I actually want it though. That's the problem. I do want the credit. So maybe other people that helped out, they kind of just fell off the face of the earth, for good reason. We'll see.
Oh, okay. Well, very good, guys. It's been good. This has been a good time. And next time we will be talking about American Beauty and Jack and Jill. Is that right? Did I get that? Jack and Jill? It's not on our normal list.
That's right.
That's right. Wonderful. I'm excited.
Which is which?
Kevin Spacey and Adam Sandler. Guess which one is
and Adam Sandler. Two Adam Sandlers for the price of one.
And Adam Sandler.
And oddly enough,
Perfect.
Al Pacino and Johnny Depp as well.
What?
They're both in that movie. I kid you not.
Spoiler.
Al Pacino is one of the. Actually, it's not even like a cameo. Al Pacino's in this movie as Al Pacino. Anyway. Yes.
Awesome. I'm excited now.
All right.
Well, good deal. Well, we will see you guys later.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a good one.